Hey guys, Robbie Falk here from 247 Sports and the Starkville Daily News, and the search for a new head coach at Mississippi State is complete. The Bulldogs have announced Oklahoma offensive coordinator Jeff Lebby to be the new head coach of Mississippi State. I believe this is the 36th head coach in Starkville, not counting interim coaches, of course, but it's done. Zach Selman has found his man. This started back after the Texas A&M game, 2 or 3 weeks, probably 3 weeks ago, I think, at this point, where Mississippi State decided to move on from Zach Arnett in the middle of the season. It allowed Zach Selman to really focus on finding a new head coach in the final weeks of the regular season and kind of get ahead of some teams that are going to be making some moves here in the next couple of days. And of course, Mississippi State's plan at the beginning, I believe, was to go out and try to find a sitting head coach, find the best hire they possibly could from a guy that has had head coaching experience, a guy that knows how to build a program, things of that nature. And I think, a few people were out there for the taking for the Bulldogs that just didn't materialize. And at the end of the day, it came down to several names, I feel like. Willie Fritz from Tulane, John Summerall from Troy, Barry Odom from UNLV. Jamie Chadwell was a guy I mentioned very early in the process, but I've said from the beginning, I felt like it was going to be tough to try to figure out the financials there. He was happy at Liberty. I think his next step is going to be at a bigger job than Mississippi State, and it was going to be a tough pull, but I did believe that he was listening to Mississippi State. He decided to stay at Liberty, and nothing ever came from that. Mike Elko was another big name at Duke. I've never felt like Mississippi State had a legitimate shot of landing Mike Elko. But those are two coaches that you definitely try to go get if you're Mississippi State. And it didn't work. So when it comes down to it, when you're battling it out for group of 5 head coaches, to me, I think it made sense for the Bulldogs to go after a guy like Jeff Lebby that has had a lot of success now as an offensive coordinator at 3 different schools in Division I, and 2 of them in the Power 5 in Ole Miss and Oklahoma for the last 4 seasons, where his offense was top 10 nationally. Really made a name for himself at UCF with Josh Heupel, and became, one of the top coordinators in college football, one of the hottest college football offensive coordinators whenever he made the move to Ole Miss. So it's a risk. Let's just go ahead and put that out there right away. This hire is a major risk for Mississippi State. Anytime you hire an offensive or defensive coordinator to be your head coach, you are really taking a big risk. These guys have never led a program. We don't know what Jeff Lebby is going to do as far as putting a staff together, as far as his day-to-day operations. We just don't know what that looks like. So it is most definitely a risk. But so is Willie Fritz. So is John Summerall. So is Barry Odom. Barry Odom coached in the SEC and was a 500 coach. John Summerall has only coached at Troy. He's done a great job there, but it's a much different level when you get to the SEC. You're going to have to be recruiting inside the top 20 to really compete for championships in this league, really inside the top 15. If you're John Summerall, he was going to have to hire a great offensive mind for Mississippi State to have a lot of success. Willie Fritz is in his 60s. He hasn't had any success on this level in the SEC. He's had a good couple of years at Tulane, but his total body of work doesn't scream, this is a home run hire. So every single guy that Mississippi State would hire is a risk. I'm going to give my personal opinion on this, and you guys know I don't mind giving my opinion on it. This is me stepping back. This is me kind of looking at what Mississippi State needs. MSU needs more than anything right now a jolt of electricity inside that offensive room. They've got to have an offense that brings excitement. You've got to sell something to your fan base that's going to allow people to come to games, give to NIL and all that. And that's exactly what Mississippi State needs, is what Jeff Lebby does on offense. Top 10 in scoring offense this year, top 10 in total offense this year. He's averaged over 500 yards before as an offensive coordinator. He's averaged over 40 points a game. It is just, to me, it's the best hire Mississippi State can make if you're giving me that group of coaches. If you're giving me a group of coaches that's Barry Odom, Willie Fritz, John Summerall, I believe Jeff Lebby is the guy that you roll the dice with, because you know that you're going to upgrade your offense significantly. This offense has been successful everywhere that he's been. So to me, it's a no-brainer. You're going to take a hit from this. We know that he has the relationship with Art Briles, being his father-in-law. He was involved in the Baylor scandal. He was a guy that was named in that accusation with the rape accusations at Baylor that Art Briles and his staff covered up allegedly. And Jeff Lebby was one of the guys that was mentioned in that case as the running backs coach. And this past year, he really stirred up some issues at Oklahoma, bringing Art Briles on the field. The athletic department said that they had talked to him before about that, and basically he ignored them and still allowed Briles on the field. And then after the game, kind of doubled down on it. But he did come back later and apologize for it. There's no doubt that Mississippi State is going to take a PR hit from that. And, that's part of it. There's still a lot of Art Briles' influence out there in college football. And those guys just are not going to go away. And this whole situation isn't going to go away. It happened, I think, in 2015. So, it's not going away anytime soon. This is going to be tied to Jeff Lebby forever. And Mississippi State's going to have to deal with that. But that's a decision that Zach Selman made. He vetted the candidate, just like any other candidates that have had issues before. Ole Miss just hired Chris Beard, and Keith Carter came out and said he vetted that hire there. So, this is just part of athletics. You're going to have baggage tied to you in this realm. It's just there's so many people that have something tied to them. Chris Jans had an incident as well. So that it's one of those things that if you're Mississippi State, this is the hire that you've made. You've got to take the hit and live with it. It's just going to be part of it. Other than that, there hasn't been any true character concerns from Jeff Lebby. He obviously has those ties there, but other than that, he's just been a really good football coach during his time coming up. Was going to play for Oklahoma on the offensive line in the early 2000s and had an injury that derailed his career. But he was part of the coaching staff for his college career. He was a student assistant, started to really learn under that staff, Bob Stoops and company there at Oklahoma, and then started to kind of make his way quickly up the ranks. Started out in high school in Texas, quickly moved to Baylor a couple years later, and was a guy that was learning there at Baylor. Then he became the running backs coach. Then he became passing game coordinator. Moves up after all the stuff happened with Art Briles. He's let go. He goes to Southeastern, I think, was the college in NAIA. Had a top 5 offense running the offense there. So he went from passing game coordinator to offensive coordinator in NAIA, and immediately top 5 on the offensive side of the ball. Josh Heupel brings him on. After a year, he's named the offensive coordinator there at UCF. And, Josh Heupel was obviously involved in that offense, but Jeff Lebby, offensive coordinator for 2 years, top 25 offenses, top 10 offenses. Gets the call from, after those couple of years, really became a hot name. He was a guy that we mentioned as a possibility. Whoever Mississippi State hired in 2020 to be head coach, Jeff Lebby would have been a great offensive coordinator. That was a guy that was really hot. On our website, we were talking about potential offensive coordinators for whoever Mississippi State had hired. And he ends up going with Lane Kiffin to Ole Miss. And in 1 year, in 2020, in that COVID year, against an all-SEC schedule, averaged over 500 yards a game, averaged well over 35 points a game. He had a top 10 offense. 2021 helped develop Matt Corral in those 2 years into a Heisman candidate. And that offense was really humming. And, just like with Heupel, a lot of people talk about, that's Lane Kiffin's offense. Well, he goes to Oklahoma, and he's coaching under a defensive coach, and he's running that offense. That offense the last 2 years has been the top offense of the Big 12 and the top 10 offense nationally. So we're starting to find out maybe this is Jeff Lebby's offense. I fully believe that he's been in charge of the offense the last 5 or 6 years with the input, obviously, of Josh Heupel and Lane Kiffin. But in this case at Oklahoma, he's full bore. He is running that offense, not by himself, but, that's his offense. He's got some good offensive analysts with him and offensive coaches. But I think this is a hire that was necessary for Mississippi State. Again, whenever you look at, where the chips started falling and who started coming up as names of interest. And we truly don't know exactly who was on Zach Selman's list. I don't think we ever will. And we don't really know, how close he was to hiring other coaches. I believe since Wednesday that Jeff Lebby has been Mississippi State's guy. They interviewed him on Wednesday. I have no reason to believe anything other than the fact that he was Mississippi State's number one after Wednesday. And this started to really kind of come together on Friday that Oklahoma played and finished out their regular season against TCU, put up 69 points in that ball game, 600 yards of offense. Gets asked about the job post-game and mentioned, there's a time and place for it. When that started being talked about publicly by Lebby, it became pretty clear that he was the guy for Mississippi State. And it wasn't until later on Sunday that we really got some confirmation that this was a done deal. Saturday night, Ross Dellinger tweeted out, and we started to get word around 5:30, 6 o'clock that it looks like Lebby is going to be the guy. And all the stuff had to be kind of figured out on Saturday night and Sunday before it could really get finalized. But Mississippi State had been preparing for a press conference on Monday. And as of this recording, I'm not sure if that is going to be the case or not. But Monday or Tuesday for sure, we should have a press conference with Jeff Lebby being introduced to Mississippi State fans. And, we'll give you some further details on that. But really good offensive mind. I think immediately makes Mississippi State an attractive place for quarterbacks and running backs and wide receivers. His offense has really allowed everybody to flourish. Offensive linemen, wide receivers have big plays. Running backs have big plays. Quarterbacks are putting up big-time numbers. Every quarterback he's had has been great. McKenzie Milton. We've seen what he's done with Dylan Gabriel at UCF and at Oklahoma. Matt Corral, obviously, at Ole Miss. I mean, he has not missed yet. Every single guy he's gotten has got it done. And again, some more things that I've seen is, he can't do it without a top 20 quarterback. Dylan Gabriel was a 3-star. That he was not a highly ranked guy coming out of high school when he went to UCF. So what we're seeing is he knows how to develop and identify and recruit quarterbacks, and he's done it at 3 different schools. And he's going to have a chance to pull some really good talent to Mississippi State. They've been picking up 4-star quarterbacks for several years now. So, Mississippi State isn't, getting scraps on quarterbacks. They're going to be able to attract a really nice quarterback, and I think wide receivers and running backs as well. And, offensive line should be recruited pretty well also. So the question is, what does Mississippi State do at quarterback now moving forward? Will Rogers obviously has entered the transfer portal. I don't expect him to return to Mississippi State, but, you just never know this day and age. I think that they're going to go out and get a very good quarterback to run the offense next year. And Jeff Lebby has been vocal behind the scenes about this job that he wants to win next year. He doesn't want this to be a rebuilding thing. Mississippi State has money in the pot in the NIL sector. They're going to go to the transfer portal. They're going to get impact players at receiver, quarterback, offensive line, and then on the defensive side as well. I expect Mississippi State to shoot big for this quarterback. There's been a lot of noise about Dylan Gabriel possibly following Jeff Lebby, maybe even Jackson Arnold. I think Gabriel is more of a possibility, but we'll see on that. He's in a pretty good situation at Oklahoma, so we'll see how that goes. But he was going to follow Jeff Lebby from UCF wherever he went. He was going to come to Ole Miss, and then Lebby went to Oklahoma. He follows Lebby to Oklahoma. So they do have a great relationship, and he's done wonders for Dylan Gabriel at UCF and then at Oklahoma. So, that's a name of interest. We'll see if that transpires. But if not, I do think Mississippi State can land a big-time quarterback. I think they got money to do it. I think they're willing to pay for it. And it's a quarterback that's going to be attracted to this offense because he's produced NFL quarterbacks. He's produced 3,000-plus yard quarterbacks. This system is very good for quarterbacks, and it's going to be attractive. And the same thing for wide receivers. Hearing good things about Xavier Thomas staying on with Mississippi State, hearing good things about Tula Griffin. You got Creed Whittemore. You got some guys already on this roster that can really gel in this offense. I think that this offense has a chance to make some noise year one, but I always caution people, transitioning offenses like that can be tough. But this offense did a really good job of transitioning at UCF, at Ole Miss in year one, at Oklahoma in year one. It's been an offense that's been productive and hasn't taken a long time to really gel and transition. So that's something to look forward to. The defensive side of the ball is a total unknown. We really don't know what Mississippi State is going to look like on that side of the ball. The good news is Mississippi State has a culture on the defensive side of the ball where it's kind of transcended coaches. Outside of Peter Sermon and, for the most part this year, Matt Brock, it doesn't matter who the defensive coordinator is. It doesn't matter the system. Mississippi State has always been solid on that side of the ball. That's been a side of the ball that has not been a huge concern for them. So making a good hire there should really seal up any concerns that you have. The Bulldogs have some solid younger talent that's already on campus. Some good pieces coming in as well. They're going to have to go to the portal. They're going to have to get some really good defensive linemen and defensive backs, possibly a good linebacker or two after losing Buki Watson and Jet Johnson. There's definitely some holes to fill there. So that's a big area of question marks right now for Mississippi State moving into the offseason. But they're going to have the money to spend there to go out and get a good coach on the defensive side of the ball. So I wouldn't be too concerned about that right now, but we'll definitely monitor it. All right, y'all. Well, we got tons of coverage coming for the rest of the weekend, and then we'll have a ton of stuff coming up from Jeff Lebby's press conference whenever that takes place. So make sure you stay tuned over there on 247 for the latest on what we got going on over there. Recruiting is going to really heat up here, so you guys need to be staying tuned in over there for all the recruiting news that's going to be coming, and the coaching staff hires, things of that nature. There's a lot of news on the way with the hiring of Jeff Lebby, but a new era at Mississippi State. We will see what happens. There's so many question marks that are out there with Lebby. The offensive side of the ball and what he does schematically is not one of them. I think you're going to have an exciting offense at Mississippi State. Will he be able to win here and win big? That remains to be seen, but he's getting his shot. The Bulldogs are giving him his shot. And I think this was, on the surface, I think it's a good hire from Zach Selman. We'll see how good of a hire it is or how bad of a hire it is in the next couple of years. But he goes out and gets his guy from Oklahoma. So, all right, guys, we will try to get back on here for a Talking Dogs. Should be a good Talking Dogs coming up probably on Monday, maybe Tuesday, depending on what the situation is with the press conference and time constraints and things like that. But other than that, appreciate you guys. Have a great week. Catch you down the road.